we are just gonna go ahead and jump on into episode 3 of my author journey. And we're kicking it off. It is the fall of 2013. I am now in college. So I said like over the summer, went down to Jamaica on the flight there, read my freshman seminar book, American Dervish, about a coming of age story. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be published one day. Like I'm going to be a published author. So I get to college, and when I say we were just in our full-blown like rebellion mode, that's what that first year was for me. I was so deeply internally grieving and angry and processing just, you know, the residue of a divorce that had happened, and having to leave and move out of my, you know, childhood home before like actually like moving to college, and just feeling a little bit disorienting, then not being allowed to escape down to the 305 and go to the college of choice that I wanted. So I am just like, and for me as a person, I am very much so like a smiley kid. Like I am constantly smiling, but deep-seated dealing with like a lot of emotions. But I went to therapy, and my therapist said like, yeah, you use that as like a block, as a guard. And it's like, yeah, I do. I don't want people inside. Like it feels like a war zone up there sometimes. So it's just easier to smile. But we're working through it. We're working through navigating our emotions and communicating that properly. Anyways, so in college, we did not go to therapy at that point in time. So we are, again, in our rebellion. I did end up getting a job at the bookstore. So I was, you know, I had a little bit of money coming in. I'm not gonna fully go into relationships in this episode, but very early on in college, got into a relationship, and we weren't at the same like college campus. He was actually older than me, so he wasn't even in college, and very unhealthy, very like kind of like a controlling space, lack of trust, you know, the whole nine. You're 18 in a new environment, dealing with this celebrated yet odd social experiment of dumping 18 to 22-year-olds or 20 plus something year olds in an area and giving them full-blown autonomy over their lives, but like cultivating or assimilating this type of adulthood that doesn't exist really in the real world, mind you. But we celebrate it. We want the college experience here in America, or at least we really did before COVID, right? So I had the bookstore little job, part-time job, was in an unhealthy relationship, which thankfully ended right around like Halloween time. I remember just, even though it was so unhealthy, I still cried. Like, what is going on? And I cried because I was accused of not being loyal, and that just like really deflates me, because if I give you my heart, I've given you my heart. Like that's it. Like I'm your girl. So going through all of that, joining a couple of different organizations, meeting new people, and I am just out. Like I'm barely sleeping. I'm barely eating the food. Like even though we have like a meal plan, like my diet is off, you know, went from doing like 3 sports in high school, or 2 to 3 sports in high school, to no sports at all, a lot of alcoholic intake, and just trying to unlearn this quote unquote identity that was formulated for me as like a kid, like growing up, and like embracing like this new like first step of adulthood, and just I guess really resenting what was kind of like labeled on me, because I didn't say this in the previous episodes, but I definitely was a principal's kid. Yes, my mom was a principal at my high school, and so, you know, she had the ins and outs of, you know, the kids that were, you know, misbehaving a bit and, you know, needed to kind of avoid or keep your eye out on. And not that people are bad by no means, but it's just like, if you want to curtail certain behaviors ahead of time, it's just like, you know, a little bit of policing going on with that. So, and also keeping up a stamina, like you don't want to be the principal's kid that's failing classes or flunking a class. Like, so it's a very high rigor standard, and mind you, just the overall high rigor and standard, because I said like, education was emphasized as very important to me, like growing up. So in the space, like I'm like occasionally going to class, like checking in here and there, whatever. By the time that second semester goes around, join another organization, was having fun doing that. Like that was more like leading campus tours. So I'll talk about that actually in the next episode. And just enjoying enjoying being this like new version of myself that I was trying to cultivate and identify with. By the time that the summer had rolled around, later in the spring semester, I had seen an opportunity where it's just like there was an internship / summer credit that was taking place in DC that would go towards my major. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I definitely want to do this. Was told no again by my parents that I would not be going to DC for the summer. Super irritated yet again. And I was just like, oh, fine. Like, I guess I'm just like gonna come home for the summer for college, but I didn't like plan for anything else. Like I didn't plan to have like a summer job like locally in the area or anything like that, because again, when I see something and I was like, this is an opportunity that I want to pursue, that's what I'm gonna pursue. And so I came back home and was just kind of a little bump on the log for a little bit. A little disappointing, I guess, to my parents. It was just like, well, why can't you just like get a job and like try to make some money? Ended up picking up like a little gig towards the end of summer. But yeah, I definitely didn't like pre-plan for that. So what I did instead was I began writing. I began writing my first book. And I actually hand wrote the thing. Like, do you guys remember composition books? Yeah, that was my choice, my medium to unpack my thoughts, create my characters, my plots and my settings and everything like that. A composition book. My hand was so sore by the end of the summer, but we completed it. And the story premise baseline was about a girl who was freshly new to an area, and her parents are struggling in their marriage because one has a substance abuse problem, and so they're trying to navigate and kind of heal and protect and remove from like the stimulating environment of that. And the girl is trying to, process that. And the way that she's processing that is that she has a room up in the attic and there's like another room behind it. And so it's just like, there's like this like escape door. But the way for her to kind of like get into that environment or escape door is like she has to have like an outer body experience. And when she has these outer body experiences, she then comes in contact with another spirit that is present, that she finds a friendship in, that she finds comfort in, that she finds being able to be more vulnerable or more uninhibited with, and everything like that. So by the end of this story of this girl like having these outer body experiences, interacting like with other spirit, like in the attic and everything like that, is the realization that she had herself been dealing with alcoholism as a teenager. And I wrote that story because it was processing what I was dealing with, what I was going through. Not that I would say that I had a full-blown alcoholism problem, although we all would like to say that we don't have a problem, but I definitely started interacting with alcohol when I was 13, 14. Y'all remember the song Blame It on the Alcohol? Sipping on the goose, got you feeling loose? Yeah, me and Grey Goose, like that was my choice, Grey Goose vodka. And it was in my parents' cabinet and stuff like that, so I'd have it occasionally here or there. When I went down to Jamaica, the legal drinking age limit is 18, so definitely was drinking a lot down there for the summer, even though I was only down there for like a few weeks. Go to college, again, the Thirsty Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Try to recover throughout the week as well. You're just like partying or drinking, and it's communal, and that's the way to socialize and feel like you're a part of something. And so completing that book and just expressing that was writing saving me, writing allowing me to see that I was not coping very healthily. And again, didn't express this outwardly to anyone. I didn't communicate that with anyone, but I could just see it for myself that I had an unhealthy habit with alcohol, and I was choosing alcohol as my coping mechanism to escape the hurt that I was feeling, the grief that I was feeling and navigating through. Because yes, one of my parents is dealing with a substance abuse problem, and it's hard because, you know, they're supposed to be your heroes, they're supposed to be your greatest examples, and then you have to slow down and kind of realize like, oh wow, like this is your first time here on earth too. Like you're also navigating through this experience called life at the same time I am, like for the first time ever. And so that was a very eye-opening and very raw and very vulnerable part of writing for me in the summer of 2014. But I was definitely excited. I was excited that I had fully like written something out and had processed what I was hurting and going through, and kind of gave me some preparation to lead into my sophomore year, which we'll touch a little bit more on in episode 4. So that does conclude episode 3. And I just want to say, in the space of, if you are struggling with any type of addiction, I am not a therapist. I am not a licensed therapist by any means, but I do share a heart of compassion for you in that space. And if you just need, what I can do though is pray. I will pray for you. Reach out to me and I will be covering you in prayer for that. So that concludes episode 3. Tune in for episode 4 next week.